I think Brandon Aiyuk has a real chance to establish himself as a top 5 wide receiver this year. He's steadily increased his production every season of his career. He had his first 1,000-yard season in 2022, and I was honestly blown away by the strides he made as a route runner. He's developed into a true technician, and if he becomes a little more consistent actually catching the football, there's no reason he can't be a perennial all-pro type of player. Before we get into the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Also follow us on all of our social medias. You can find the links to those in the description below. Before I really took a deep dive into Brandon Aiyuk's film for this video, I knew he was a good route runner, but I definitely underestimated how much he had developed. Last year, he ranked 4th in success rate versus man coverage, and then 538 has probably the best receiver stats available. They use the next gen stats tracking data to calculate how open a receiver gets on average 0 to 99, and Aiyuk had an 81, which was tied for 8th with Devontae Adams and Justin Jefferson, and that was a major improvement from his first 2 years where he was in the 50s. So watching Brandon Aiyuk's 2022 tape, I saw a completely different player than I had seen in the previous 2 seasons. He went from a good route runner who was a little inconsistent against press to a borderline dominant route runner at every level of the field, and the numbers back up that transformation. Aiyuk doesn't run a very diverse route tree in the 49ers offense just based on how it's designed. He had 254 yards from dig routes last year, which ranked 2nd among NFL receivers and accounted for almost a quarter of his total production, and he's pretty much mastered running dig routes at this point. He has sharp footwork, he's quick out of his breaks, and he does a great job at the stem of manipulating the defender's positioning. Aiyuk's strategy with any sort of in-breaking route is threaten the outside release to widen out the corner and set up his break in the opposite direction. So basic example right here, press coverage shaded outside, Aiyuk attacks the outside leverage, and once he draws out this step with the back foot, the rep is pretty much won because he's created some cushion and gotten the corner on his heels, and he can't stick with a break inside. Here's another one against the Panthers. He's going to gather step to close off the initial space, shuffle at the outside shoulder to sell the fade, and then cross over and establish inside leverage. Now at this point, he's in pretty good shape. He's got Dante Jackson high and outside trying to cover an in-breaking route with his hips pointed towards the end zone, but Aiyuk sticks the landing here by using the stair step technique where he accelerates vertically, gives a jab step in the opposite direction of the break, and then bursts out of that jab step across the middle of the field. The stair step technique here is crucial because at this point in the play, Dante Jackson's hips are turned around and he's in a terrible position to stick with a break inside, but if Aiyuk came out of this release drifting towards the hashes, that would alert Jackson that he was running a dig, and he would immediately start to turn his hips and recover. Aiyuk wants to keep Jackson turned towards the end zone for as long as possible, and the only way to do that is to sell a vertical route so Jackson thinks, oh, I'm actually in good position, and then Aiyuk can break it off and separate at the very last second. You see the same strategy on slants. Nice play here against the Chiefs. He's so good at using this shoulder turn to avoid contact at the line of scrimmage. He's physical at the stem to fight through hand contact and just really fluid out of the break. Another one from week 7, doesn't give as hard of an outside step, but he's still able to widen out the corner and create space for the inside release. And then he dips the shoulder, forces L'Jarius Sneed to miss his punch. This is an example of a rep that was won at the line of scrimmage. And then one more dig route. This is another great example of the stair step technique. This time he immediately releases inside. Good job working through the route pressure with the inside hand, and then he pushes vertically while leaning into the defender and breaks in the opposite direction. So a lot of Aiyuk's receptions look the same. He does have somewhat of a specialized role, but that really has more to do with the 49ers offense, which is built around attacking the middle of the field and running these play action bang concepts. Any Shanahan or Shanahan adjacent offenses are going to have a similar route distribution, so it's really just a matter of what Aiyuk's being asked to do. But when he runs other routes, there's no drop off in Brandon Aiyuk's ability to separate. Right here, he's running a pivot route against AJ Terrell, who's playing press coverage with heavy outside leverage because he has help over the middle of the field with this robber safety, so giving up an inside release isn't a problem. But with man coverage on the boundary, there's nothing in Aiyuk's way if he's able to release outside. So Aiyuk's trying to run this route to the exact spot that Terrell's trying to prevent him from reaching. So he sells that he's running a slant. He gives a hard jab step with the outside foot and then breaks inside. AJ Terrell thinks it's a slant, but then Aiyuk sinks his hips instantly. He's got his left hand balanced on the ground and his right arm's extended to prevent Terrell from grabbing his jersey, and then he's able to quickly accelerate out of his break and into the end zone. Here's another pivot route against off coverage. Again, you see the elite hip fluidity, so smooth changing directions, and the DB had no shot to cover this. Right here, San Francisco's running sail, which is a go, out, and flat route at all 3 levels of the field. Aiyuk releases inside, leads with the shoulder, and essentially uses brute force to stack the DB. And at this point, he's in such good position that he could probably just break outside and separate, but he gives a quick inside step and shakes him at the top of the route. It's really impressive how Aiyuk's able to adjust his plan based on the situation. He just has every technique at his disposal, and it's like taking an exam with the answer key. So on this play, he's running a deep out, but when he reaches the break point, he doesn't have leverage and he hasn't stacked the corner. So he uses a push-by technique where he puts the outside hand on the defender's back, pushes him downfield, and clears him out with the other hand. And then really nice route against Jamel Dean here. He's running a stop and go, so he stems vertically, and then at 10 yards, he sinks his hips, gives 3 break steps, and re-accelerates into the end zone. So Brandon Aiyuk excels at the most important and most difficult aspect of the receiver position, which is route running, but there's a reason I'm talking about him as a breakout candidate for next year and not someone who's already established themselves as a top 5 type of receiver, and that's catching the football. He had 6 drops last season and a contested catch rate of 39%, which ranked 56th among NFL receivers, and this is going to be the deciding factor in Aiyuk taking that next step. From everything we've seen, the drops are most likely here to stay. In his 5 years of football, college and NFL, Brandon Aiyuk has only had a drop rate below 5% once, and 5% is usually league average, and it's a good rough benchmark for whether someone has drop issues. So it seems like you can expect a handful of focus drops each year from Brandon Aiyuk, but ultimately that's more of an annoyance than something that's going to significantly limit his production. But I think he has a lot to gain from improving his contested catch ability. He just wasn't consistent last year winning at the catch point, especially on deep passes, and he left a lot of big plays on the field. They gave him some back shoulder fades, and he did an okay job adjusting his body, but he just couldn't come down with the football. I think he needs to be more aggressive using his length to high point the ball instead of short arming it and waiting for it to drop in his hands. And then you see his play strength and physicality as a route runner, but when it comes to fighting for position at the catch point, he'll let defenders eliminate space, and he doesn't really take advantage of his frame to box guys out. So the result is a lot of low percentage contested targets where the corner's just draped over him. Even marginal improvement in this area I think would have a huge impact. He doesn't have game-breaking speed, so he's not going to be someone that's consistently getting 3 steps of separation on a go route. Whether or not it's charted as a contested catch, most of Aiyuk's deep targets are going to be in somewhat tight quarters. So if you can start bringing those in at a higher rate, you're looking at a complete wide receiver 1, a premier intermediate separator with yak ability that can win down the field. That's a very difficult combination to stop if he puts everything together. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, let me know in the comments any NFL players or teams that you'd like me to cover.